Have you ever thrown a bunch of your favorite colors together, expecting a masterpiece, only to end up with a chaotic, muddy mess? Relying strictly on your gut often leads to visual friction you didn't intend. When planning a project, you're usually facing one of two realities. You either want to play it safe and guarantee a cohesive, polished look, or you need your design to grab someone by the lapels and demand immediate attention. To get the result you want, think of the Cullen wheel as a tool for measuring how specific color combinations influence a viewer's response. This chart maps out the color palette spectrum. Every color decision forces a trade-off between harmony, which feels safe and calm, and contrast, which generates tension and energy. How you navigate this space dictates whether a viewer feels relaxed, energized, or overwhelmed. Approaching the color wheel as a system allows you to move past subjective guessing and toward a deliberate objective strategy. Let's look at the raw inputs. This diagram shows how we mix primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, to create secondary and tertiary hues. These are colors in their purest, most saturated state. But hitting an audience with nothing but pure hues causes eye strain. To make a design readable, you adjust value and chroma, adding black or white to create shades and tints, shown in this Munsell color tree. The temperature of these colors sets your baseline mood. Warm colors like reds, yellows, and oranges evoke vitality and optimism. Because of how our eyes process them, warm colors actually appear to advance toward the viewer, inherently demanding attention. You see this vitality harnessed across cultures. In this traditional Indian wedding scene, the heavy use of bright yellow, orange, and red attire is a deliberate choice to amplify the high energy and auspiciousness of the celebration. Conversely, cool colors like blues and greens are linked to nature and water. They visually recede from the observer, offering tranquility and restfulness. But lean too heavily on them, and a design can feel detached or overly subdued. So while individual hues and their temperatures set the basic mood, it is how you combine them, your color scheme, that ultimately determines how much visual friction your audience experiences. If you need a guaranteed low-friction result, you start with a monochromatic scheme. By using only varying shades, tints, and tones of a single hue, you lock in absolute visual cohesion. The trade-off is a lack of contrast. Without competing colors, it becomes difficult to draw a viewer's eye to a specific focal point or call to action. When executed as a seamless gradient or ombre, like this transition from pale blue to navy, the effect is deeply soothing. But achieving it requires meticulous sorting of color values, so no harsh jumps break the illusion. For a bit more variety without sacrificing safety, an analogous scheme uses colors sitting side by side on the wheel, like blue, aqua, and green. It mimics the natural groupings we see in landscapes and skies, creating a relaxed, unified feel. However, because these neighboring colors share primary DNA, they lack inherent tension. If you aren't careful, the elements will blur together into a muddy wash. You often have to inject a small contrasting accent just to keep the eye moving. Harmony schemes are sophisticated and highly reliable for setting a calm tone, but they do not possess the kinetic energy required to jolt an audience to attention. When you need a jolt, use high-friction palettes. This diagram highlights a complementary scheme, pairing opposite colors, like green and magenta, generating maximum energy. Placing opposites side by side triggers a physiological phenomenon. Each acts as a multiplier, creating an illusion where both hues appear significantly brighter. But using complementary colors at full, equal strength is physically jarring and causes eye strain. To make this work, you must unbalance the equation, letting one color dominate while subduing the opposite into a much softer tint or a darker shade. If you want to push contrast further, a triad scheme uses 3 hues evenly spaced around the wheel. It offers an adventurous, vibrant palette that still maintains an underlying structural balance. Executing a triad is difficult. With 3 competing colors, you must enforce a strict hierarchy. One hue has to take absolute precedence, restricting the other 2 to minor supporting roles. Contrast schemes are powerful tools for driving action, but they operate on a razor's edge, demanding rigorous balancing to prevent collapsing into visual chaos. Looking at this decision tree, your first step is defining the functional goal of your project. Are you trying to soothe and unify, or do you need to energize your audience and boldly stand out? If you are a harmony seeker, say you're decorating a bedroom, piecing together a quilt, or drafting a corporate stability report, you want this path. Rely heavily on monochromatic and analogous schemes, utilizing receding, cool tones. If you are an impact optimizer, a marketer, or a creator who needs to drive immediate action, you take this route. You'll want to leverage complementary and triadic schemes, anchored by advancing warm yellows and oranges. Just remember the golden rule for those high-friction paths. Never deploy your tension-heavy colors in equal amounts. You must dictate one clear dominant player to anchor the visuals. This comparison matrix shows exactly what you're signing up for. The further you move from monochromatic up to a triad, your visual contrast and emotional output scale upward, but the effort required to balance the design accurately multiplies right alongside it. Color theory relies on the relationship between position and tension. Adjacent colors create peace, while opposite colors create friction. Knowing when to deploy each gives you control over how an audience reacts to your work.